Oh, hello guys. Nana here. Those of you who came to the lecture, thank you. I just thought because we couldn't finish the last part, I will take the opportunity to do a screencast, and then you can watch this and then see the last part of the lecture with the explanation, and hopefully that can help you for your seminars. So we got to this point. And at this point, but anyway, I'm going to disappear from your screens and then I'll just show you the slides and talk over it. Oh, that's it. So, as I started before we finish, we spoke about fixed costs and then we spoke about variable costs. Now, this third type of cost is what we call the semi-fixed or semi-variable cost. Now, why is it called semi-variable cost or semi-fixed cost? It's because it contains certain elements of fixed costs and then variable cost. It's made up of a fixed cost element and a variable cost element. And as you can see in the example over here, so for example, a phone bill is made up of your line rental, which is fixed, and call charges, which is based on the calls that you make. In the same way, if we go to the solicitors or to any law firm, they will charge us a fixed amount, and then there's another variable charge based on the number of hours they spend with you. So that's variable parts of the semi-variable cost. And then the fixed parts is the what we call the retainer, the amount that you have to pay whether you still have to come or not. In the same way, if you take out utilities, so for example, the gas, electricity, there's always a standing charge we have to pay. And then depending on how much we use, there's also an extra charge, which is a variable cost. So the usage rate is based on how much we use, and the standing charge is always fixed. So as you can see, as I was saying, you've got a fixed cost part of the semi-variable cost, which is always fixed. Even if we don't use it or we are using it, we're still going to be paying the fixed cost part of it. And then you've got a variable cost, that's the line above it, showing our usage, how much we use it. And then the two together is what is made up of the semi-variable cost or semi-fixed cost. So it's either called semi-variable cost or semi-fixed cost. So now this semi-fixed cost or semi-variable cost, the elements in it, that's the element of the fixed cost and variable cost, is different from our fixed and variable cost we've been talking about earlier on. So if we take a semi-variable cost, we said it's made up of a fixed cost and a variable component. Now, how do we know how much of our semi-variable cost, how much of it is the fixed element and how much of it is the variable element? So for us to decide or to work out how much is made up of, we use this formula. Now, first we have to work out what we call the variable cost per unit. Now, the formula we use is the cost at the highest production, take away the cost at lowest production, divide by the highest production over lowest production. Now, what does this mean? So, if you take, for example, this table over here, which show you units that we produce and how much is costing us to produce these units. Now, to produce 0 is costing us £10. 2, 14 pounds, up to 5, 20 pounds. So here, what is the cost at highest production? The highest production here is what is our 5. The highest production is a 5. And then cost at highest production is 20. So our highest production is 5 and our lowest production is 0. So 0 is our lowest production and the cost is £10, and 5 is our highest production and the cost is £20. So we put these two in our formula here. So cost at highest production. What is the cost at highest production? It's £20. So it's 20. Take away cost at the lowest production. And the cost at the lowest production, which is for the 0, is 10. So the 20 minus 10 over the highest production, which is the 5. Take away the lowest production, which is 0, which is 5. Take away 0. Are you with me, guys? So it's 20, which is the cost at the highest production. Highest production is based on your number of units produced. So highest production is 5 and the cost is £20. Lowest production is 0 and the cost is 10. So it's 20, take away 10. 20, take away 10 over the 5, take away 0. So you get 10 over 5, and when you divide, we get 2. So our variable cost per unit is £2. Now, this is not finished. So now that we've got our variable cost per unit, we now use the variable cost per unit to work out what our fixed cost is supposed to be. Now, we know our variable cost per unit is 2. Now, as I said earlier today, our total cost is your variable cost plus your fixed cost. Now, variable cost is what? Our variable cost per unit times the number of units. Yeah, if you remember, I said our variable cost is variable cost per unit, how much it costs us for 1 unit, times the number of units. Then we add the fixed cost, and that will give us our total cost. So our total cost is your variable cost, which is this figure. But because we know our variable cost per unit to be 2, we can use any of these to work out our fixed cost. So for example, we take this, the 5 and the 20. So our variable cost per unit is 2 and number of units is 5. So 2 times 5, that will give us our variable cost plus the fixed cost. So we know the variable cost to be 2 times 5 based on this. Total cost we know is 20. So we put 20 here equals the 2 times 5 plus the fixed cost. We don't know the fixed cost here. Okay, so using your basic maths, our fixed cost will be equals to what? The 20 take away the 2 times 5. And we know 2 times 5 is 10. Yep, so 20 take away 10 is give us 10. So it makes the fixed cost element of our semi-variable cost is what? 10. Okay, so variable cost per unit help us to work out our fixed cost from using one of these. Now, this is what we call the high-low method. It's called the high because we're using the highest output, and low because we're using the lowest output method. So please, this is what we couldn't finish today. So what was I saying? We first have to calculate the variable cost by working out the variable cost per unit. So you work out a variable cost per unit. That helps us to work out our variable cost, which is variable cost times number of units. But we know our total cost is made up of a semi-variable cost and then a fixed cost element. Our semi-variable cost here is made up of what? The variable cost and then fixed cost. So when we put in a 2 times 5, that gives us our variable cost. But we know the total to be 20. So 2 times 5 is 10. So 10 plus 10 should give us 20. So we know our fixed cost is 10. Variable cost per unit is 2. Our variable cost is also what? 2 times 5, which is 10. So this is called a high-low method. So we first calculate the variable cost per unit using the cost at highest production minus the cost at lowest production over your highest production divided by lowest production. So it's always the money divided by the number of outputs. So this is the cost. So the money over the highest, the number of outputs. Then once we know the variable cost per unit, we use it to calculate the fixed cost component of the semi-variable cost. So by using this formula, which is the total cost equals our variable cost per unit times the number of units plus the fixed cost. Now we can use any of these. You can use any of these to work out your fixed cost here. We chose this. You can choose this. You can choose this. You can choose this. Any of this should be able to help you to work out the fixed cost, which should be the same, 10. Okay. So please, there's some few questions in the seminar that we're going to go through now. So another example over here. Again, we've got June, July, August, September, October. The production units, 1,000, 1,500, 2,100, and the total cost. So using the high-low method, which one is our highest production? So I'm sure you can all see August is our highest production. So that's our highest cost. And which one is our lowest production? Is the month of October, which is 750. And the cost associated with that is 41,250. So highest production, and the green is our lowest production. Well done, guys. Those of you got it right. So the red is our highest production and the green is our lowest production. So we put that in our high-low method. So I'll pause here and then I'll get you to try this question, please. When you finish, click on play, pause it. When you finish, click on play, and then okay, so let's see. I hope you all managed to do it. Take your time. Variable cost, first work out our variable cost per unit, which is cost at the highest production minus cost at the lower production. What is the cost at highest production? So the cost at highest production, we know the highest production is 2,100. So the cost is 61,000. And then the cost at lowest production, our lowest production is 750 and the cost is 41,000. So the money aspect is at the top, 61,500 for the highest production, and the minus the lowest production, which is 750, and the cost is 41,250. And then we divide by the highest production itself, which is 2,100. Take away your 750. So as you can see, it's always the money divided by the output. It's not the output over the money. It's the money on top, which is the 61,500 minus your 41,250 divided by 2,100 minus your 750. So when we work this out, we get 15. So once we get 15, that's our variable cost per unit. So what do we do now? We now take any of this. So this time we're going to take June, the one on top. We're going to use that to work out our fixed cost. Now we know the total cost is your variable cost per unit times your number of units, all in bracket plus our fixed cost. Okay, we know the total cost because we are using June. You can take any of the month to work out your fixed cost. In this occasion, we're going to be using June. You can use July, August, September, October, any of them. So the total cost for June is 45,000. Variable cost per unit is from here. We're working from here, which we got 15. Times the number of units. June, the number of units is 1,000 units were produced. So the 1,000 units produced times the variable cost per unit, which we work to get 15. Are you with me, guys? In bracket plus our fixed cost. Okay, so again, if the fixed cost stays and we move this there to the other side of the equal sign, 45,000, take away the 1,000 times 15 should give us our fixed cost. So 45 minus 15,000, so it means our fixed cost is 30,000. Okay, so semi-variable cost. So what is telling us that for these cost over here, which is semi-variable cost, is made up of a fixed cost of 30,000. and then the variable cost, you just multiply a variable cost per unit by the unit. So for June, 30,000 is your fixed cost, and then 15,000 is our variable cost. Okay, fixed cost is always the same. So for July, 30,000 is the fixed cost, and our variable cost will be what? The 52 minus 30, which is 22,500. So in the same way, the fixed cost is the same throughout, and then now we can know the variable cost component. So the high-low method helps us to identify the variable cost component and then the fixed cost component of the semi-variable cost, because the semi-variable cost, or what we also call the semi-fixed cost, is made up of what? Two elements: a fixed cost component and a variable cost component. And to excuse me, and to work out our variable cost component and then the fixed cost component, we use what we call the high-low method. Okay, so here variable cost per unit is 15 and fixed cost component is 30. So you can test the results with any of these, as I've just done. You can test it with any of these and you should be getting the same. You can either use July instead of using June to work out your fixed cost, or August. So whichever month anybody uses, we should be getting the same as. So now there are other types of costs. We got a sunk cost, managerial cost, opportunity cost, but we've not been doing this, but there are also different types of costs that is available. So if you look at your income statement, which we did last week, this is our variable cost, the cost of sales. So we know our sales coming in. This is our variable cost because it changes depending on how much sales or production that we produce it. And then these are our fixed cost. So the fixed cost is all the other expenses, and the variable cost is over here. So this is the lecture that we couldn't finish on the semi-variable cost, which tells us about the high-low method. Now, before I go, I quickly want to go back to the slide. Yes, this slide. A lot of you got confused today about this slide. Now, because I wanted you guys to work out quickly, I was saying we can get rid of the zeros. But what that means is the fixed cost for managing a product is 60,000 and the variable cost per unit is £2. Complete the table below. So that is what we had, and we had to complete it. Now, a lot of you got confused with these zeros. Yeah. Now, what if you see any table, Excel, which we use everywhere you go in the organization, you see zeros over there. 30 means the figure is in thousands. Anyway, this is zeros. This means 20,000. This means 40,000. This means 60,000. Yeah. So that's our output. But then we said the fixed cost we know is 60,000. Now, because it's got a 3 zeros over here, we just write 60. Yeah, fixed cost we know remain the same. It stays the same. So this is 60,000, 60,000. Now, if you write 60,000 here, it's fine. But what it means is you have to get rid of these 3 zeros. Else, if you write 60,000 and the 3 zeros are here, it means 60 million. So you either decide to get rid, if you are getting confused, get rid of all the zeros on top here and then write everything as in full, 20,000, 60,000 or 80,000 or whatever it is. If you are comfortable with it, keep the zeros here and then just work. By working in these makes it easier for you to add, subtract, multiply than using all the zeros and making it a longer figure. Now, so if fixed cost, we know fixed cost always stays the same. So the fixed cost is 60,000. So as you can see, 60, 60, 60, 60. So it remains the same. Now, how do you work out variable cost? Variable cost we know is your variable cost per unit times the output. Because we know for each unit, it's going to cost us £2 in variable cost. So the more we produce, the higher our variable cost. The less we produce, the lower our variable cost. So the variable cost changes as the number of outputs also changes. So here, because we got 0 output, it will be 0 times the 2, which will give us 0, if you remember your times table. Now here the output is 20, don't forget 20,000. So 20 times 2 will give us 40. So this is 40,000 because it was in what? 20,000 units times 2, 40,000. But because we got 3 zeros here, it means 40,000. I hope you are with me, guys. Now this output is 40, so the 40 times 2, which will give us 80,000 for variable cost. And here the output is 60, so output times the variable cost per unit, which is the 2 times the 60, should give us 120. So we know our fixed cost to be 60,000 for each of them because it stays the same. Variable cost will vary, so we have to multiply each output by the variable cost per unit, and that gives us different figures as we can see from here. Now to find the total cost, we know to get a total cost is your fixed cost plus variable cost. Okay, so you take each of the different outputs and you add the fixed cost to the variable cost. We know the fixed cost is the same, 60,000. Here the variable cost is 0, so your 60,000 plus 0 will give you 60,000. 40,000 variable plus the fixed cost, which is 60, will give us 100,000. Again, 60,000 the fixed costs plus 80,000 from the variable cost will give us 140,000. And then the 60 plus the 120 will give us 180. So it means 180,000. And as I said, if you're not comfortable, just work in using all the zeros, which is fine, but make sure you delete the zeros above here. Now total cost per unit. So we need to do the total per unit. This is the total for 0, total for 20 units, total for 40 units, and total for our 60 units. So what is the total cost per unit? So here we take the total cost, which is 60, and we divide by the number of units that we produce. In this case, we didn't produce anything, so it will be 60,000 divided by 0, which will give you 0, because any number divided by 0 is 0. Here, when we produce 20,000 units, it says the total cost of 100,000, and the number of units is 20, so the 100 divided by the 20 will give us £5. That's, which gives us 5. Yep. Now 40,000 for 40,000 units, it costs us 140. So 140,000 divided by 40,000 will give us £3.50. Again, for the 60,000 units, it costs in 180,000, which is 180,000 divided by 60, which will give us £3. So you can see the total cost per unit is decreasing as the number of units is decreasing. So what it's telling us that is that as we produce more, the more you produce, the lesser the cost per unit becomes. So if you go to a restaurant, you're selling tickets for an event, the more you sell, the more food you produce, the more people are sleeping in your hotel, the more you get, the less your total cost per customer or per person become. And this is what it means. So I hope this clarifies some of the confusion in the lecture, because some of you were confused about the zeros. You were not sure why it's got zeros and I'm writing 60,000 here. It's because, as I've already explained, it's because it makes it easier for you to work. But if you're not comfortable, delete the zeros over here and then write 60,000, 60,000, 60,000, 60,000, 40,000, 20,000. If you're comfortable, that'll help you with that. Thank you for listening. I hope this clarifies some of the situations and the lecture today. And think about the high-low method. Listen to it again and try the questions in your seminar. And please, 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 as always, If you've got questions, speak to your seminar tutor. I'm happy. Email me. I'm happy to meet up with you, sit down, and I'll go through with you. Make sure you understand it, because as you can see, next week we're going to be doing something different, which is going to also be using some of the costing. So get a concept, understand it, work through all the seminar questions, write the notes down, and then I'll see you soon next week. Those in my seminar class, I'll see you tomorrow or Friday. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.